Mom, please. I swear it's not what it looks like. I didn't even hear the doorknob turn. All I felt was the way the air in my room shifted, like the atmosphere itself froze around me. Right before my mom's voice cracked through the silence with a single sentence that detonated inside my chest. What are you wearing? My heart slammed so hard it felt like it tried to escape my body. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just stood there in front of the mirror, paralyzed, wearing the one outfit I promised myself I'd never let anyone see. A soft blush pink skirt brushing my knees. The delicate blouse I'd secretly ordered online. The wig, my wig, falling across my shoulders like I'd spent 1,000 nights imagining. My reflection still trembling from the shaking of my hands. I remember opening my mouth, but nothing came out. Not even a whisper. Just the sound of my own pulse trying to deafen me before the world could. Her eyes weren't angry. They were confused, hurt, and somehow that was worse. I swallowed hard, my throat burning, my voice barely clinging to existence. Mom, I can explain. But I hated how weak it sounded. Like I wasn't explaining anything at all. She stepped inside carefully, as though approaching a frightened animal, not her son. Her gaze kept drifting back to the mirror, to the girl staring back at both of us with wide, terrified eyes. I felt exposed in a way I'd never imagined. Not because of the clothes, but because this was the part of me I kept buried so deep I didn't even admit it out loud. Even to myself. Mom's voice softened. Sweetheart, how long have you been doing this? Her words weren't sharp. They weren't judgmental. They were soft, curious, almost fragile, like she was scared she might break me if she spoke too loud. The question hit me harder than anger would have. My fingers clenched around the hem of the skirt. The fabric felt too delicate for the moment, trembling just like me. Everything inside my head spun. Months of hiding, years of confusion, countless nights staring at the ceiling wondering why I felt different every time I looked in the mirror. And somehow, in that moment, all of it pushed forward at once. Since before high school, I whispered. The room felt smaller as the words left my mouth, like admitting the truth pulled the walls a little closer. Mom's eyebrows lifted in shock, then in something deeper, something I couldn't read. A mix of worry and guilt, and something tender underneath. She sank down onto my bed, still watching me carefully. Why didn't you tell me? The real answer echoed inside me like a secret too heavy to pick up. Because I didn't know how. Because I didn't understand myself. Because I was scared of disappointing everyone, including her. Because I didn't want to feel different. Because I didn't want this to be real, even though it was. But the only words I managed were quieter. I thought you'd think I was weird. Her expression changed instantly, like pain flickered through her. Oh, honey, no. Never. I wanted to believe her, but my chest felt like it was wrapped in 1,000 knots. My reflection behind her didn't help. Soft, feminine, scared. A version of myself I didn't know how to introduce to the world. Mom hesitated before speaking again, her voice gentle. Is this something you want? Or is it something you're trying? I just need to understand. But that was the hardest part. I didn't know how to phrase the answer. Because this wasn't a costume. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a phase. It was something deeper, something I couldn't put into a single sentence without feeling like I'd fall apart halfway through it. My breath trembled. I don't know, I admitted. I feel more like me like this. The silence that followed was thick and electric. My stomach twisted. The truth was out there now, raw, unpolished, vulnerable. Mom looked at me for a long moment, and her eyes softened with something I hadn't expected. Understanding, fear, love, concern, all tangled together. She reached out her hand slowly. Come here. I hesitated, terrified of being rejected, terrified of being accepted, terrified of everything. But I walked toward her anyway, my heels tapping softly against the floor, every sound amplifying the reality of what was happening. She held my hand, the same hand she held when I was a child crossing the street. But this time it meant something different. This time it wasn't guidance or protection. It was permission. Whatever this is, she whispered, we'll figure it out. Together. Something broke inside me. Relief. Fear. Years of secret tension melting all at once. Tears blurred my reflection, and the girl in the mirror finally looked like she could breathe. But just as I felt myself sinking into the moment, just as I thought maybe everything was going to be okay, my bedroom door swung open again. My little cousin stood there, wide-eyed, mouth hanging open, phone in his hand raised mid-record like he'd been holding the camera long before we noticed. "Oh my God," he whispered. I didn't know you were." The world froze again. Not because Mom saw me, but because someone else had recorded it. And in that split second, everything in my life tilted off balance. And I had no idea where it was about to fall. The recording. For a full second, none of us moved. Mom's hand tightened around mine. My cousin's eyes darted between me, the phone, and the mirror, like he couldn't decide which version of me was real. And I felt every drop of blood drain from my body. I didn't even recognize my own voice when it finally escaped my throat. "Are you recording me?" He flinched like the words physically hit him. He lowered the phone, but not all the way. His cheeks flushed bright red, and he swallowed hard, fumbling for an explanation that wasn't there. I wasn't trying to be creepy, I heard your mom yelling. I didn't know what was happening, then I saw." "Saw what?"
Saw me?
Saw the version of myself I swore would never leave the four walls of my bedroom. My legs suddenly felt weak. I stepped backward, nearly tripping over my own heels as panic surged up my spine. Mom stood abruptly, shielding me instinctively as she faced him. "Turn it off," she said firmly. He nodded frantically and pressed the screen, but the knot in my stomach only twisted tighter. "Delete it," I whispered. "Please." His face went pale. I will. I didn't mean anything by it, I swear." But I could still see the reflection in his terrified eyes, me in the soft outfit, my mascara smudged from crying, the wig still perfectly framed around a face that didn't know whether it belonged to the world or not. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until Mom touched my arm again. "It's okay," she murmured. "He'll delete it." But her voice sounded far away, like she was speaking through water. Because what kept echoing inside my head wasn't the fear that he recorded me. It was the fear that he'd already seen too much.
"Give me the phone," Mom said.
He hesitated, his hands shaking as he passed it to her. She checked the video, her eyes narrowing before she exhaled sharply. "It's gone," she said, turning the screen toward me to show the empty gallery. But I could still feel the ghost of it. A video that existed for only a few seconds, yet it cracked open every secret I'd spent years locking away. My cousin rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. I don't get it," he said quietly. "Is this like a prank? Or part of some challenge or something?" The question felt like a pin being pushed into a bruise. Mom shot him a sharp look. "This is not a joke." He froze, then his expression softened, not into mockery, not into disgust, but into something like unfamiliar concern.
"Oh,
Sorry. I just didn't know." That made two of us. I didn't know, either. I didn't know how to answer. I didn't know how to explain the knot of fear and relief and confusion burning in my chest. I didn't know how to define something I didn't fully understand myself. "I think you should go downstairs," Mom told him gently. He nodded, still staring at me for a moment with this strange mixture of apology and curiosity before slipping out of the room and rushing down the hallway. The door shut behind him. Silence again. Except this time, I wasn't frozen. I crumpled. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the floor, burying my face in my hands as the realization hit me all at once. The tears came before I could stop them. Mom knelt beside me immediately. "Sweetheart, hey, look at me." But I couldn't. "I ruined everything," I choked out.
"He saw."
"Mom, he saw. He recorded me." "He deleted it," she repeated softly. "But he knows," I whispered. "It's out. It's real now." Mom brushed a strand of hair, my wig's hair, from my face. Her touch was steady, grounded, the opposite of what I felt like inside. "Maybe," she said, "it's time you didn't have to hide so much." The words made my breath hitch.
Hide.
The thing I'd built my entire identity around. Mom looked at me with this heartbreaking mix of tenderness and worry. "You've been carrying this alone for too long," she whispered. "Let me share the weight." Her voice cracked slightly, and that almost broke me more than anything. But before I could answer, before I could even breathe properly, we both heard footsteps pounding up the stairs again. This time faster, urgent, different. Then his voice, choppy and panicked. "Ani, someone else saw. I didn't know the door was open. I think he might have." Mom stood instantly. "What happened?" she asked, her voice firm. My cousin's voice trembled. "I think someone else might have recorded it before I deleted mine." My entire world lurched. It felt like the floor tilted like a sinking ship. I grabbed the edge of the bed to steady myself, my heart stopping, then exploding into a frantic, uneven rhythm. Another recording. Another pair of eyes. Another unknown. The walls of my room that once felt like the only safe place left in my universe suddenly felt too thin, too fragile to protect anything. Mom looked at me, fear flickering across her face for the first time. "Sweetheart, stay here." But I shook my head instantly.
No.
"I'm coming." Because if my world was about to break open, I needed to be there when it happened. The hallway of echoes. I followed Mom and my cousin into the hallway, though my legs barely felt like they were part of my body anymore. Each step felt weightless and heavy at the same time, like I was floating through a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My cousin kept glancing back at me, guilt twisting across his face like he wanted to hide it but couldn't. We reached the top of the stairs, and he pointed weakly toward the living room below. "I'm not sure," he whispered. But when I walked away, the front door wasn't fully closed. I think someone outside might have seen you through the crack." My stomach dropped. Outside. A stranger. A stranger who wasn't supposed to know anything about me, who wasn't supposed to see this. Not the clothes, not the tears, not the reality. I didn't know how to explain even to myself. Mom stepped closer to the railing, looking down as if searching for any sign of someone still lingering nearby. The air felt too still, too quiet, like the house itself was holding its breath with us. "Did you see who it was?" she asked calmly. My cousin shook his head. "I just heard footsteps. Running. Toward the street." Mom let out a slow exhale, a mix of relief and panic simmering beneath the surface. I gripped the railing tightly, my knuckles white. "Mom," the word barely made it out. What if they posted online?" She turned to me immediately, her expression shifting into something fierce and protective. I'd only seen that look twice in my life. Once when she defended me from a school bully, and once when a doctor dismissed my pain during an illness. Now that look was aimed at the world outside. "We are not jumping to conclusions," she said. "We don't know what they saw or what they recorded, if they recorded anything at all." "But they ran," I whispered. "Why would someone run unless—" I couldn't finish. The fear was too big, too jagged to swallow. Mom placed both her hands on my shoulders, grounding me. "Listen to me. We'll handle it together. But right now, I want you to breathe." I tried. I really did. But my breath hitched every time I imagined a video uploaded somewhere, me in that fragile moment, confused and exposed, turned into entertainment or gossip or some cruel joke. My cousin's voice broke through softly. "I'm really sorry," he said. "I should have knocked. And I didn't think anyone else would walk by." The sincerity in his voice cut through some of the chaos in my mind. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He wasn't mocking me. He was scared too. "It's fine," I said, though the words felt too small compared to the storm inside me. "Just let's figure out what we're dealing with." Mom nodded.
Exactly.
"We need information, not panic." But panic was already crawling up my spine. "Mom, what if this ruins everything?" She shook her head. "Sweetheart, nothing about who you are ruins anything. People won't understand," I whispered. "You saw how he reacted, and he's family." My cousin winced. I wasn't judging. I just didn't know how to react. "I know," I said softly. And I did. It wasn't disgust. It was shock, The kind that comes from seeing someone you thought you knew in a completely different light. Mom motioned for us to go downstairs. "We need to check if anyone's still outside," she said. "And then we'll talk." The staircase creaked under my weight as I followed them down, each step echoing like a countdown in my head. When we reached the living room, sunlight spilled through the windows, warm and bright, so painfully normal it almost felt mocking. Mom opened the front door. A gust of cool air rushed in, brushing against my skirt, sending a shiver across my skin. I peeked out timidly. There was no one. No lingering shadows. No figures hiding behind cars. Just the quiet street, the neighbor's dog barking somewhere in the distance, and the faint rustle of leaves. Mom stepped outside, scanning the area again. "It looks clear." But the absence of danger didn't calm me. Because sometimes the threat wasn't outside. Sometimes it was invisible, sitting quietly in someone's phone or memory, waiting. "I can't believe this is happening," I whispered, sinking onto the couch. The moment I sat down, the weight of everything pressed against my chest so hard I felt dizzy. Mom came to sit beside me, brushing her thumb gently across the back of my hand. "You're not in trouble," she said softly. "You're not wrong. And you're not alone in this." Her words were warm, but they collided with every fear I'd built up over years of silence. "What if people laugh?" I asked. "Or call me names? Or think I'm—" Mom squeezed my hand. "People always fear what they don't understand. But you're brave, sweetheart. You just showed me who you truly are, and that's something to be proud of." Tears blurred my vision again. Not from fear this time, but from the realization that she meant every word. Then my cousin slowly lowered himself into the armchair across from us, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "If someone else saw," he said, "then we should try to figure out who." I lifted my gaze. "Why?" He swallowed. "Because if it was recorded, we should know what we're up against." The room fell silent. Mom closed her eyes briefly as if steadying herself. "All right," she said finally. "Then we're going to find out. But whatever happens, we'll face it together." Her voice was firm, stronger than the fear, stronger than the uncertainty. And yet underneath all of it, one question still pulsed inside my mind like a heartbeat. What if the world finds out who I really am before I'm ready? Whispers beyond the door. We stayed in the living room for a long moment, the three of us listening to the quiet neighborhood outside like the silence itself held answers we couldn't hear. I kept staring at the doorway, half expecting someone to appear with a phone raised, the light red, blinking like an accusation. Mom leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, deep in thought. My cousin rubbed his palms against his jeans, nerves practically radiating off him. Finally, Mom spoke. "Who was supposed to come by today?" "Anyone." My cousin shook his head. "Not that I know of. But earlier, I did see someone walking their dog past the house. Maybe they passed again." My chest tightened. A stranger with a perfect angle through the cracked door. The timing, the way they ran. It all felt too precise. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the afternoon warmth drifting through the windows. Mom looked toward me gently. "Sweetheart, I don't want your mind running to worst-case scenarios. We don't have proof anything happened. But we don't have proof it didn't either," I whispered. She fell silent. My cousin got up, pacing a slow path between the couch and the dining table. "If someone did record it," he said hesitantly, "they could have just been surprised. Maybe they won't do anything with it." "You don't run away like that just because you're surprised," I murmured. "You run because you think you saw something scandalous. Something you can share." The word share hollowed out the center of my stomach.
Share. Spread. Post.
Forward.
Laugh.
My imagination twisted each version into new shapes, each more terrifying than the last. Mom reached for my hand again, squeezing it gently, grounding me. "Let's take this one step at a time," she said. "We'll talk to the neighbors. Ask who walked by. There's a very good chance nothing happened." My voice broke. "And if something did?" She looked at me with a softness so deep it made my throat tighten. "Then we protect you. That's what we do." Her certainty almost made me believe we could handle anything, But then a sudden vibration on the coffee table snapped every muscle in my body into alertness. Mom's phone lit up. A message preview. From the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Hartman. Mom's eyebrows furrowed slightly. She unlocked the phone, read the message, and her breath caught. My heart stopped. "What?" I whispered. "What did she say?" Mom looked at me, her expression carefully controlled, hiding something, but not well enough. She said she thinks she saw something through our door earlier. And Mom inhaled slowly. She wants to talk. Everything inside me twisted. "No," I said instantly, sinking deeper into the couch cushions as if I could disappear into them. "No, Mom. I can't, not now." "She doesn't sound upset," Mom said quickly. "Just concerned."
Concerned.
Concerned was still a reaction.
Concerned meant she saw something.
My cousin stood frozen, his mouth slightly open. Mom typed something back, then set the phone down gently, as if it might break if she moved too quickly. "She's coming over." "What?" My voice cracked so sharply it startled even me. "I told her she could," Mom said calmly. "We need clarity, sweetheart. We can't spend the whole day drowning in assumptions."
Clarity.
I didn't want clarity. Not if clarity meant confronting the exact fear I'd been hiding from. I pressed a hand over my chest, feeling my heart hammer beneath my palm. "Mom, I'm not ready for someone else to know." She turned toward me, her tone soft but firm. "I know you're scared, but hiding won't make this go away. Talking might." I shook my head, panic rising. "I don't want to be a spectacle," I whispered. "I don't want people staring. I don't want them thinking something's wrong with me." "Nothing is wrong with you," Mom said immediately. But the fear was louder than her reassurance. The sound of footsteps outside tapped against the pavement.
Slow.
Familiar. Getting closer. My breath hitched. Mom stood up and smoothed her shirt, preparing herself. My cousin stepped closer to me, almost protectively. Then, a soft knock on the front door. 3 gentle taps. The kind someone uses when they're trying not to startle you. Mom opened it slowly. Mrs. Hartman stood outside, holding her dog's leash in one hand, her expression unreadable, somewhere between nervous curiosity and genuine concern. Her gaze drifted past Mom, landing on me sitting on the couch. Her eyebrows lifted slightly in recognition. Not shock, not disgust, but recognition. My heartbeat stumbled. She took a small step inside. "Honey," she said softly, addressing me directly, "I saw something earlier, and I thought maybe you might need someone to talk to." My lungs stopped working for a moment. Not someone judging me. Not someone laughing. Not someone threatening. Someone offering to talk. But that didn't make it any easier. Mom closed the door gently. Mrs. Hartman stepped closer, her dog sniffing the floor obliviously. And then she said something I never expected. "You looked scared. Not wrong. Not strange. Just scared. And I wanted to make sure you're all right." The tears came instantly, hot, fast, uncontrollable. Because of everything she could have said, that was the last thing I expected. She wasn't here to accuse me. She wasn't here to gossip. She wasn't here to expose me. She was here to ask if I was okay. And that unexpected kindness, that gentle worry, broke something open inside me that fear had held shut for years. A kindness I didn't expect. I don't know what shocked me more, the fact that she saw me, or the fact that she wasn't afraid of me, disgusted by me, or confused beyond reason. Instead, she was warm. Mrs. Hartman, the woman who baked pies for every holiday, who waved at every passing car, who once scolded me for not wearing a jacket in December, stood in my living room with a softness in her eyes that made my breath stumble. Mom motioned for her to sit. She chose the armchair near me, close enough for her to talk to me, but far enough to avoid overwhelming me. Her dog curled up at her feet. Mom sat beside me. My cousin hovered near the doorway like backup security, and I just trembled. Mrs. Hartman tucked a loose strand of silver hair behind her ear and spoke gently. "I didn't see everything," she began. "Just a glimpse through the door. I thought you were dressing up, experimenting." Her tone held no judgment. Just observation. My throat tightened. Mom looked at me, giving me the space to speak, but not pushing. I wiped under my eyes, though the tears kept coming in quiet, embarrassing waves. I wasn't trying to put on a show. I finally murmured. "Oh, sweetheart, I know," she said immediately, leaning forward slightly. I could tell it was private. I only caught a moment. And the moment I did, I walked away because it felt like something I wasn't meant to witness. A wave of shock rolled through me. She walked away.
She didn't keep staring.
She didn't film. She didn't whisper about it on her porch. She walked away. My chest tightened painfully, like the relief hurt as much as the fear did. "I wasn't sure if I should say anything," she continued, "but then I saw your cousin running outside looking shaken, and I worried something happened. I wanted to make sure you weren't in trouble with yourself." The last two words hit me harder than I expected. With myself. Because all day, that's exactly what it felt like. Like I was in trouble with myself. Like I had betrayed some invisible rule I didn't even understand. I swallowed hard. "I'm not," I whispered. I didn't want anyone to see me like this." "Why not?" she asked softly. The simplest question. And the hardest to answer. I looked down at the outfit I was still wearing. The soft skirt brushing against my legs. The blouse that made my shoulders feel less heavy. The wig that framed my face in a way that felt strangely right. "I don't know what I am yet," I said, my voice cracking. "I don't know how to explain it. I just know that sometimes this feels more like me than anything else ever has. And I don't want people to laugh or think I'm broken." She smiled softly.
"Oh, darling."
"Different isn't broken." The sentence wrapped around me like a blanket. Mom exhaled shakily beside me, her hand finding mine again. My cousin shifted, biting his lip like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. Mrs. Hartman continued gently. "When I was young, my brother used to dress up in my mother's scarves. We didn't know what it meant back then, but he looked happy. And I always thought happiness shouldn't need permission." My breath hitched. Permission. I'd been searching for permission for years without realizing it. Permission to explore. Permission to feel. Permission to exist without fear. "You don't owe anyone an explanation," she said. "Not me, not the street, not even the world. Only yourself." The words sank deep, settling into the places fear had claimed for too long. Mom nodded, wiping a quiet tear of her own. "He's been carrying this alone," she said, her voice cracking slightly. Mrs. Hartman gave her a sympathetic smile. "Then maybe it's time he didn't have to." I felt a lump rise in my throat again. Too big. Too heavy. "I'm scared," I whispered. She nodded. "Of course you are. Anyone would be." Her dog lifted its head and gently nudged my foot with its nose, as if agreeing. "And what if someone else did record something?" I asked, barely audible. "What if it spreads?" She held my gaze. "Then you face it with the people who care about you. No one gets to decide your story except you." My breathing faltered. She wasn't dismissing my fear. She wasn't pretending the world was always kind. But she wasn't letting the fear control me either. We sat in a fragile circle of understanding. Mom, worried but strong. My cousin, guilty but supportive. Mrs. Hartman, unexpectedly compassionate. And me, somewhere between terrified and relieved, unsure which feeling would win. Then Mrs. Hartman stood slowly. "I won't stay long," she said. "But before I go..." She looked at me with such sincerity it felt like sunlight cutting through storm clouds. "You're safe. With me. With your mother. With your home. Whatever you're figuring out, you won't be doing it alone unless you choose to." My eyes blurred again. She stepped toward the door, her dog following eagerly. Mom walked her out, thanking her quietly. I stayed seated, feeling like the walls of the room had shifted. The world hadn't gotten smaller, but somehow bigger. Scarier, yes. But also, maybe more possible. When Mom returned, she sat beside me and brushed her fingers lightly over the back of my hand. "See," she whispered, "the world isn't full of enemies." I nodded slowly, still shaking, still processing. But then my cousin cleared his throat. There's something else, he said hesitantly. Something cold slid down my spine. I turned toward him. What is it? He took a deep breath, fear flickering across his features. I think I know who else might have seen you. The night I finally realized she wasn't testing me anymore. I woke up before my alarm because my corset wouldn't let me sleep on my back. The thin pink straps of the maid uniform had slipped off my shoulder during the night, and when I sat up, the skirt fanned out like petals around me. For a moment, I just stared at myself in the mirror across the room, the soft curls she'd put in my hair still perfect, my lips still faintly glossy from last night's obedience polishing session, as she called it. I wasn't just playing a role anymore. I could see it, my posture, my movements, my voice, the way my thighs pressed together automatically. I had become what she wanted, and what, secretly, I was beginning to want too. Her footsteps came down the hallway, slow, deliberate, confident. When she opened the door, she didn't even speak. She just looked at me with that proud, knowing smile. I felt my knees weaken instantly. Good morning, sweetheart, she finally said. I hope you slept well in your proper place. My proper place. Something fluttered inside me when she said that, something both frightening and thrilling. She checked the way I had folded my night apron on the chair, then walked to me and lifted my chin with her fingers. Do you remember your duties for today? I nodded. Yes, clean the living room, prepare lunch, iron your blouses, and my voice trailed off, cheeks burning. And practice your walk in heels, she finished. Because a proper feminized housemaid should move with grace, without needing to be reminded. Isn't that right? Yes, ma'am. The words came out softer than I intended, almost instinctive. She loved that. She handed me a new ribbon, deep lavender satin, and tied it around my neck like a delicate collar. This is for today. It means you're in full service mode. No complaining, no hesitation, no shortcuts. I want to see how far you've come. The ribbon felt like electricity on my skin. My training started immediately. She stood behind me with her arms crossed while I practiced stepping, turning, bending. Everything slow, feminine, controlled. When I slipped once, she didn't scold me. She just murmured. Again, with a tone that sent shivers straight through me. By noon, I was breathless, my legs trembling, but I didn't dare stop. Because for the first time, I wasn't just doing this because I owed her, or because she paid my debts. I was doing it because I wanted her approval. And she knew it. After lunch, she sat on the couch with a cup of tea while I dusted the shelves on my knees. She gently lifted my chin with her foot, smirking. Look at you, she whispered. You don't even realize how beautifully you've surrendered. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. She wasn't testing me anymore. She was shaping me, and I was letting her. The day she finally told me what I had become. The lavender ribbon still rested at my throat the next morning, soft but impossible to ignore. I woke up instinctively earlier than her, as I always did now, my body already aligning itself to its new routine. The maid uniform she'd chosen for me today was laid out on the chair, softer, shorter, more delicate than the others. Lace trim. A pastel blush color that made my skin look smoother, softer, girlish. She always chose outfits with purpose. She wanted me to see myself the way she saw me. When she entered the room, she didn't knock. She never did anymore. She simply walked in, eyes tracing my posture, my folded hands, the way I stood with my knees together without thinking. Good girl, she murmured. My stomach fluttered violently at those two words. They were no longer rewards, they were identity. She dressed me slowly that morning, piece by piece. Her hands brushing my shoulders, tightening my corset, smoothing my skirt. She clipped a small bow into my hair and stepped back, admiring her work as if I were a doll she'd been sculpting for weeks. No makeup yet, she said. Not until your duties are done. You earn your prettiness now.
Her rules were changing.
Evolving. Tightening around me but gently. Intimately. I served her breakfast, kneeling beside her chair, pouring tea when her cup reached half empty. The way she tapped her finger on the table was the new signal. Refill. The way she crossed her legs meant move closer. The way she glanced downward meant silence. And somehow I knew all of it. After breakfast, she led me to the living room. No words, just a tilt of her head, and pointed to the floor in front of her. I knelt instantly. She lifted my chin slowly, studying me not with dominance, but with a strange tenderness that sank into my chest like warmth. "Do you know what you look like right now?" she asked softly. "No, ma'am." "You look peaceful," she whispered. "You finally look like someone who's not fighting himself anymore." My breath hitched. "You think I hasn't noticed?" she continued. "How your voice softened on its own, how you hold your skirt so naturally, how you blush when I call you she." My cheeks burned. She smiled knowingly. "You were never meant to live as some stressed-out man working through debt. You fit this life, this softness, this obedience, better than you admit." She stood, walked behind me, and placed both hands on my shoulders. "Do you even remember what you looked like before all this?" I hesitated, and the terrifying truth washed over me. I didn't. Not clearly. Not completely. She leaned down to my ear. "Then maybe you're finally ready to hear what I've known for weeks." My heart hammered. "You're not pretending to be my feminized housemaid anymore," she whispered. "You are her." My breath left me in one shaking exhale. She continued, voice low, warm, unhurried. "You serve like her. Walk like her. React like her. You've surrendered like her. You're blossoming into the woman you were too afraid to imagine." I felt my hands trembling on my lap, but not from fear, from recognition. She circled around me, lifted my chin with one finger, and kissed my forehead. "From today forward, you're not in training. You're not in transition. You're not performing a role." She smiled, a slow, proud, satisfied smile. "You're mine, my girl, my prettiest servant, and the soft, obedient femininity you've given me." Her thumb brushed my lip. "Is your future now." I lowered my eyes, breath shaking, and whispered the only thing I truly felt. "Yes, ma'am." And she smiled because she knew I wasn't saying it out of debt anymore, or pressure, or fear. I said it because it was who I had become. The moment everything became real. I don't know why that morning felt different. Maybe it was the quiet, the kind of hush that makes you feel like the world is holding its breath. Or maybe it was the way she watched me as I polished the floor, her chin resting on her hand, like she was studying something delicate she wasn't ready to touch yet. Or maybe it was because she had finally said out loud what I had been silently becoming. Her girl. Her feminized housemaid. Her creation. The words echoed inside me long after she left the room. And instead of panicking, instead of resisting, I felt a strange calm blooming in my chest, like I had been carrying a secret weight for years, and she had finally lifted it with one sentence. I belonged somewhere. To someone. As something new. I looked at myself in the reflection of the cabinet door, pastel-made dress, soft face, gentle posture, and realized with a startling clarity that none of it felt like costume anymore. It felt like the closest I had ever been to myself. Halfway through dusting the shelves, she called my name. Not my old name, not the masculine version the world used to know, but the feminine one she had chosen for me weeks ago. The one I only used in my head, afraid it was too real. "Come here, sweetheart." Sweetheart. Not assistant. Not maid. Not boy paying off debt. Sweetheart. My legs moved, without thought. When I reached her, she placed her hands on my cheeks and lifted my face, as if she was about to make a life-changing announcement. "We need to talk about something important," she said. My breath caught. She guided me to sit beside her on the sofa, something she never did. I always sat lower than her, always beneath her. But now, she placed me next to her, shoulder to shoulder, as if I had earned a new kind of closeness. "I watched you try so hard at the beginning," she said quietly. "You obeyed me because you were scared. Because of the debt. Because you thought you didn't have a choice." My fingers twisted nervously in my lap. "But now," she continued, "you serve me because it feels right to you. And I'm not going to pretend I haven't seen it." Her hand slid over mine, warm, steady, grounding. "You don't hide your smile when you curtsy anymore. You don't stiffen when I brush your hair. You hold your skirt when you walk, because you like how it looks. And you look at me," her voice softened, "with the eyes of someone who's finally stopped fighting." My heart pounded unevenly. She wasn't wrong. And that scared me more than anything. She took a long breath, as if choosing her next words with care. "I didn't force you into femininity," she said slowly. "I just gave you a path. You chose to follow it. Every day, step by step, ribbon by ribbon." I felt tears prick at my eyes, but not from sadness. From the strange, overwhelming relief of being seen, completely, fully, accurately. She wiped a tear with her thumb. "I want you to hear something, and I need you to truly listen." I nodded, trembling. "You don't owe me your identity. You don't owe me your femininity. You don't owe me a life of service." Her hand squeezed mine. "You choose it." My breath escaped in a shaky exhale. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "And if this is who you want to be, then I'm here. I'll guide you. I'll support you. I'll shape the space around you so you can grow into the soft, peaceful version of yourself you're discovering." I swallowed hard, unable to speak. "Look at me," she said gently. I did. Her eyes held no command, just understanding. "You're free to leave this role anytime. No punishment, no pressure, no debt holding you here." For a moment, the room went silent. A test. A doorway. A chance to step out. But my body didn't move. My hands stayed folded in my lap. My voice didn't rise. My legs remained tucked to the side like the maid she'd trained. The truth was loud and unmistakable. I didn't want to leave. Not the femininity. Not the softness. Not the routine. Not her. She saw the answer written across my silence. And she smiled, slowly, warmly, triumphantly, but not because she won. Because I finally knew myself. She tilted my chin upward with 2 fingers. "Then let me make something clear," she said, her voice steady and certain. "From today on, you're not living this life because of circumstance." Her thumb brushed my lip. "You're living it because it fits you." A breath shuddered from my chest. She took my hands, guiding me to kneel, not by command, but by invitation. And I sank down willingly, gracefully, naturally, like my body finally understood its place. When I looked up at her from the floor, she brushed a strand of hair behind my ear and whispered, "That's my girl." And for the first time, truly, undeniably, wholeheartedly, I smiled back. Because it wasn't a role anymore. It was me, the girl who once lived in shadows. The maid who found peace in obedience. The soft, delicate self I never knew how to reach, until she guided me there. And as she kissed the top of my head, the gentlest, proudest gesture she had ever given me, I knew the truth with crystal clarity. I hadn't become her maid. I had become myself. And she was simply the one who helped me find the courage to bloom.